Ladies and gentlemen, Monsignors, honored guests, my name is Larry Kiska, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for tonight. On behalf of the Canadian-Slovak League, I would like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for coming out tonight to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Slovak Independence. Tonight, we will be recalling an event that in one way or another changed the lives of each of us. Those people who were around may remember the feelings of joy as Slovakia finally gained independence in 1939, while those born after the so-called Soviet liberation hear stories of what life was like. And those of us who were born in Canada wonder what life would be like in Slovakia now, or even what it would be like in an independent Slovakia, surrounded by more than just your parents and brothers or sisters. We have a great program planned for tonight, so I won't take up any more of your time. I would now call upon Joe Kiska, President of the Canadian-Slovak League, Branch Number 1, to say a few words of greeting.
Senator Nurkic, Dr. Paktikan, Mr. Praznik, Leader of Opposition, Mrs. Vasarica Lis, Monsignor Reken, friends from United States and Saskatchewan, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I would like to welcome you to this historic gathering. It is historic in two ways. First, we are here to remember the 50th anniversary of Declaration of Slovak Independence. Second, and most important, we have never before had as many distinguished guests gathered as we here today. Today, we are not only remembering events which happened 50 years ago, we also look at the current situation in Slovakia. One can only wonder what life would be like if Slovakia had remained independent. What we know for sure is that people like Bishop Korec and many religious people would not be prosecuted by the government. And there will be no need for the roughly 20 underground newspapers that currently exist. They will be able to come out of hiding and publish the views of the people without the fear of the 4-year jail sentences that currently being handed out. Noting that one Slovak publisher was recently jailed for that very reason. It brings to mind Dr. Martin Luther King words when he said, "Injustice anywhere is an enemy of justice everywhere." Today, as it appears to be a tradition in Slovak history, it is a people who have left that small, precious, but suffering country that are its foremost spokespeople. This is not surprising when one considers that 1/3 of all Slovaks live outside of their ancestral homeland. We are grateful to Canada for taking us in and giving us a second chance to start over. We are now Canadians and we are proud of that fact. However, an important part of being Canadian is knowing where your roots are and being able to use your heritage to strengthen Canada. We thank Canada for its multicultural heritage that allows a mere 70 or 80,000 Canadian Slovaks to unite and work with greater intensity and louder voice than 2 million Slovaks living in the United States. Regardless, however, of where we live or how small or large a group we are, Slovaks around the world are one single family looking through curtain windows into the heart of our home. The Slovaks of today do not want to return to Slovakia of yesteryear. Instead, we are looking forward to a democratic and independent Slovakia that is respected and can hold its head up and be treated as an equal in the international community. This will include being recognized by the media and the governments as the Slovaks, not as the Czechs or Czechoslovaks, as the situation is today. The best way to achieve this is to have Slovakia re-establish international relations with other countries and have governments such as Canada put a consulates in Bratislava as a recognition of that uniqueness. When discussing the topic of Eastern Europe with Joseph Stalin in Yalta, and I believe This fits perfectly to the Slovak situation. Mr. Churchill said, "The eagle should let the little bird sing." As anyone can see, Slovakia isn't singing. It's calling for help. I hope that someone will hear us soon, because there are some people here with us tonight who recently arrived from Slovakia, and I believe we have some visitors from Slovakia. Please allow me to say a few words to them in Slovak. Drahí priatelia, dovolte, aby som vás čo najsrdečnejšie pozdravil, našich vzácnych návštevníkov zo Slovenska. Dúfam, že sa medzi nami budete dobre cítiť a že si odnesiete dobré spomienky na náš druhý domov Kanadu. Tiež by som chcel medzi nami privítať naše najnovšie posily. Ním by som chcel popriať čo najviac úspechov, aby sa im darilo v našej novej vlasti. Netreba zúfať nad ťažkými začiatkami. Cez tie musí prechádzať skoro každý emigrant. Treba vydržať, dúfať a veriť v lepšiu budúcnosť a tiež nezabúdať na svoj pôvod a byť naň hrdý. Musím sa vám ospravedlniť, že veľká väčšina nášho programu bude po anglicky. Robíme to zo slušnosti voči našim vzácnym hosťom, ktorí zastupujú federálnu a provinciálnu vládu. To, že si dnes pripomíname 50. výročie slovenskej nezávislosti, neznamená, že sa chceme vrátiť do minulosti, ba práve naopak, myslíme na budúcnosť. Na to, že raz bude nezávislá demokratická Slovenská republika, na to, že raz Slováci si budú sami objektívne písať svoje dejiny, na to, že Slováci budú reprezentovať pred svetom seba samých a nie cudzích, na to, že sa budú na Slovensku zachovávať ľudské práva pre všetkých občanov, a na to, že Matica Slovenska sa stane znovu národnou inštitúciou a nie nástrojom na rozširovanie štátnej propagandy. Predtým, ako odozdám slovo nášmu konferencírovi, vás chcem upovedomiť, že náš slávnostný rečník Marián Šťastný vám ochotne odpovie na vaše otázky cez prestávku alebo po programe pre tých, ktorí nerozumeli. Ďakujem.
I would like to now call upon Monsignor Reckham to say grace, and I'll ask that you all stand for grace. I also ask, I ask that after grace you please remain standing for the singing of O Canada, Hey Slovaci, and a toast to the Queen and to the Slovak people.
Slavery and celebrate the spiritual liberation of the human race from slavery of sin by suffering, death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Heavenly Father, you are God of freedom, liberating the chosen people, liberating the human race. You offered us the freedom of children of God. Please, give this freedom to all members of your divine family, which is the human race, which we all belong to. Give freedom to our old country, Slovakia. Preserve and bless freedom of our new country, Canada. Bless us all and bless these gifts we are going to eat from your bounty in the name of our dear Jesus Christ. Amen.
Strong
In remembrance... Whatever. In remembrance of the Declaration of Slovak Independence, I would like to propose a toast to the Queen. In the troubled times of 1939, many varied situations were occurring around the world. Taking time from a difficult international situation, the government of Great Britain, on behalf of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, took the time and care to recognize and welcome the independence of Slovakia. To the Queen. And not to be forgotten, a second toast must be made. A second toast must be made to the men and women who, over the centuries, have struggled against incredible odds, not only to keep, but slowly and steadily expand the feelings of nationalism that is so much an important part of our lives. I ask that we all toast to the Slovak people. I ask that you all please be seated and enjoy your dinners. To all, good appetite. Dobre hut. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our head table. To my extreme left, we have Mr. and Mrs. Kuklica, Mr. Kuklica being the chairman of the Slovak Parish Council. We have Mr. and Mrs. Kiszka, with Mr. Kiszka being the president of the Canadian Slovak League Branch Number 1, Director of Finance for the Slovak World Congress, and a member of the Slovak Canadian National Council. We have Dr. and Mrs. Paktikan, Dr. Paktikan being a Liberal Member of Parliament. On behalf of the Government of Canada, we have Senator Nurgitz. We have Monsignor Reckham from the Church of the Visitation of Our Lady. We have Mr. Marian Šťastný, Executive Vice President for the Slovak World Congress, and our keynote speaker. On behalf of Mr. Gary Philman, we have Mr. Darren Prasnik, Member of Legislature for Lac de Bonny. We have Mr. and Mrs. Carstairs, Mrs. Carstairs being Leader of the Official Opposition, Liberal. Behind me, we have Mr. and Mrs. Wasilisa-Lise, Mrs. Wasilisa-Lise, on behalf of the NDP. And to my right, Mr. and Mrs. Popik, Mr. Popik being the Vice President of the Canadian Slovak League. I'd also like to introduce a few of the guests we have with us in the crowd tonight. We have Mr. Eugene Cherwick, Supreme Director of the Knights of Columbus. Oh well. Mr. Peter Robinson, Manager of the home of the Knights of Columbus. Mr. John Iwatsky, Grand Knight of the St. John Council. We also have the daughter and son-in-law of Mrs. Goulet from the Toronto Slovak Dancers, Danka and Dave from Fargo, North Dakota. The Takach family from Regina, Saskatchewan. And a longtime friend of the Slovaks, Dr. Kovac. Our keynote address tonight will be given by Mr. Marian Šťastný. Mr. Šťastný is the Executive Vice President of the Slovak World Congress. Marian is the oldest of the legendary Szczesny brothers, who played for the Quebec Nordiques. Mr. Szczesny, who holds a law degree from the University of Bratislava, and his brothers have been active members of the Slovak community around the world for many years and have proved to be excellent examples for younger generations of today to follow. I ask that you all please welcome Mr. Marian Szczesny.
Before I will turn to my speech, I hope everybody of us has this program. I would like to say small remarks. Over there on the last page you can see, for those naturally who are not Slovaks and they don't know Slovakia, you can see our neighbors Poland and Hungary. And as usually we Slovaks are complaining today. A lot of complaints comes from Slovakia. People are saying we got a lot of fogs, a lot of clouds. It rains all the time. It's terrible. We ask why? Because in Hungary and in Poland, the communism evaporates. Okay. Distinguished guests, clergy, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Before we begin this commemoration of the Declaration of Independence of Slovakia, permit me to introduce myself. I was born in January 1953, 8 years after the downfall of the Slovak Republic and the end of the Second World War. I belong then to that generation that never lived through the founding of Czechoslovakia, its immense problems, its breakup, and its restoration as a communist totalitarian system. So my opinions and my outlook are not biased by personal involvements and personal responsibilities. They are based on objective and historical facts, and I will try here to be as unemotional and objective as it is possible. Mine is the outlook of the younger generation, which looks at things in their global context. We are not as influenced as the older generation by the local events that surrounded the founding of the Slovak Republic, and still we concur with them in being proud of it. I lived in Slovakia for 27 years until 1981 and completed my university education there. As a lawyer, as well as a noted hockey player, I was able to circulate in many levels of society. So I am aware of the true feelings, of the true opinions of many Slovaks. Some of them are in the highest responsibility positions of the regime, and I knew that their real opinions are not always those officially approved and propagandized by the government today. In adulthood, I was forced to leave my country, along with my wife Eva and our 3 children, Eva, Robert and Jana. We have lived for 8 years in this beautiful and free country, and it was natural that we would get in touch soon after we arrived with the Slovak organizations that have existed for so long here. It is often forgotten that the first Slovaks came to Canada more than 100 years before I did. They had well established their parishes, their fraternal benefit organization, and their community social clubs. The Slovak World Congress, the Canadian Slovak League, and the First Catholic Slovak Union are among these. They are, I found, the real representatives of the Slovak population here. At home, I had hardly heard of them, and when they were mentioned, the official propaganda described them as fascist, revanchist, and reactionary groups working to cause agitation on Slovakia and to destroy their peace. How false I found that to be. I did not leave my original home, which is in the grip of a communist and truly reactionary regime, to join any fascist or reactionary group of any other kinds. And so I am proud and happy to say that I have joined the Slovak groups of America because they are tolerant and democratic. And because, like us all here, I am happy to join those who are devoting their lives to the fight for the natural rights of the Slovak people. They really need us. Today, when we commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Slovak Declaration of Independence, I am reminded with sadness that the fate of the Slovak people seems curiously like that of Blanche Dubois, the tragic heroine of the play by Tennessee Williams, A Streetcar Named Desire. You will recall the remark by Blanche as she is being led away at the end of the play, "I have always relied on the kindness of strangers." So it has seemed with us, whatever Slovaks have tried to do for themselves, with whatever goodwill and trust they have approached other peoples, it appears that in the end they have depended on the kindness of strangers. The destiny of this small group of people seems to have been shaped by greater powers, in the remote past by Romans and Franks, later by Austrians, Turks, and Hungarians, in this century by the Czechs, Americans, British, French, Germans, and since 1948 and 1968, most of all by the Russians. Unhappily, the strangers have not always been kind. Indeed, when they have not been cruel, they have at best been indifferent. We see throughout the history of the Slovak leaders a constant battle to balance all the forces, to uphold the spirit of Slovak unity at home, and to prevent the strangers from taking over. To be friends with the Austrians and Hungarians, but not servants. To be allies with the Czechs and Germans, but not soulmates. Certainly, where the strangers have been kind and tolerant, as here in Canada and the free world, we must acknowledge that with gratitude and hope that we can give back to Canada as much as Canada has given to us, or even more. The importance of the Slovak Declaration of Independence to us is that it proved that independence is possible. It proved that even after 1,000 years of suppression, a people and a culture cannot only survive, but revive. In the words of our national song, Hej Slováci, ešte naša slovenská reč žije. Hey Slovaks, our Slovak language still exists. Independence proved that. We cannot escape geography and history. In this independent world, no man is an island and no nation a fortress. Still, the existence of Slovak Republic is in relative peace and prosperity in the midst of the worst conditions. The 6 horrible years of the Second World War proved that Slovaks are not more colonial subjects unable to rule themselves when their masters are gone. And it is true that those conditions were horrible. The Czechs, like the Austrians and the Hungarians before them, never liked the idea of an independent or even anonymous Slovakia. They worked furiously to kill it right from its birth. Yet it survived until the will of that other great cruel stranger, the Soviet Union, subjugated it. Let us admit that the Slovak Republic had many flaws in its constitutional structure, that its government was not all that we would have desired, and in it some people we would not admire. We would not be Slovaks if we were not willing to face our own mistakes and to correct them. Still, the day that independence was declared marks something important that we will never call a mistake. Never. No nation once free can ever forget that, nor even tolerate any other conditions. Let us admit that the judgment of the Slovaks as to which stranger to trust has not always been good. In fact, the history of Slovakia has been a history of universal disappointment. Is it our peasant nature? Only in my lifetime did Slovakia change from peasant economy to an industrial one. We have had centuries of peasant traits drummed into us. You here are used to a farming economy. You know that for a farmer, help and trust and goodwill come naturally. Honesty is taken for granted. Independence is fiercely defended. As a farmer, you think nothing of going out of your way, using your own time to help a neighbor pull his tractor out of the mud, to lend your neighbor an expensive piece of machinery if he needs it to get in his harvest. The first instinct of a farmer are to trust and to help. But if he is betrayed, if he is disappointed, a farmer never forgets, and that peasant memory goes on for generations. That is what has been like with the Slovaks. I will briefly recap the most important events of our recent history that illustrate this. To use the words of the American historian Dorota L. Marak, Slovak history is the history of unrelenting nationalism. I will not go as far back as the 9th century, when the people known as the Hungarians over in Central Europe and exercised domination over what is now Slovakia. These strangers were a disappointment. They made serious attempts to eliminate the Slovak language and culture from the world, as in the famous phrase of the one Hungarian prime minister, "The Slovak is no man." In short, no such a thing as a Slovak exists. What is remarkable, however, is that 1,000 years later, in 1848, the world learned that Slovaks still exist and, oddly enough, were still willing to forgive oppression and live in peace with their neighbors. On September 19, 1848, the Slovaks raised an army to fight alongside the Austrian monarchy to put down a rebellion in Hungary. All that the Slovak National Council asked as a reward was that Slovakia be recognized as an equal partner in Austrian Empire built on a federal basis. Such a simple demand. Yet it was refused by the Austrian monarchy, despite the Slovak blood that had been spilled on Austria's behalf. And so we learn something once again about the relying on the kindness of strangers. In 1918, as the First World War came to an end, the Slovaks turned their eyes to the West for help, to Britain, France, and the United States. Once these great powers had defeated Austria, the Slovaks again rose and declared their autonomy. They were no longer willing to live with Hungary or Austria, even as equal partners. A new Slovak National Council this time declared its desire to live in peace and as an equal partner with the Czechs in a federated state. Again, such a simple demand. And the Czechs even pretended to honor it for a while. In the documents of the Versailles Peace Conference, for example, the great powers of the West were careful to spell the name of the newly formed nation, Czechoslovakia, a hyphenated name with capital letters for both peoples, to show their equal importance. Yet, within 3 years, the Czech central government had stripped Slovakia of any autonomy and reduced it to the tail end of a Czechoslovak name, which they commonly abbreviate to Czech. Once more, a lesson about the kindness of strangers. Even the Czechs learned something about that in 1937 and 1938, when Britain and France decided they no longer had any interest in maintaining order in Central Europe and abandoned the great power role there to Hitler's Germany. It is to the eternal discredit of the Czech centralists that they always in 1921, 1927 and 1937 rejected legislation proposed by the Slovaks that would have done nothing more than make the country a federation of equal people, nothing more. The Slovaks then were not even thinking of complete independence. It was thus with mixed feeling that the Slovaks watched England and France abandon Europe to its fate and Germany increase its pressure on Czechoslovakia. There was a historic opportunity to be grasped here. It was obvious that Slovakia had a chance at last to gain its freedom, since the West no longer cared, and the only power in Europe that mattered, Germany, was in favor. In retrospective, choosing to mollify this particular murderous stranger, Nazi Germany, rather than the other murderous one, Stalin's Soviet Union, has done us Slovaks as much harm as good. It has given the Czech and communist government of the present state the chance to label anyone and everyone who works for a free Slovakia as a fascist and a collaborator, even those who were not even born at that time, and even those who have lived all their lives in democratic countries and passionately support the natural rights of all people to freedom. It is regrettable that such a nation as Hungary, Italy, and Romania, who fought actively on the side of Germany, had their independence respected when the Second World War ended, but Slovakia did not. Consider, in the last relatively free election in Czechoslovakia in 1946, the Czechs voted more than 2-1 in favor for the Communist Party and their allies. The Slovaks voted more than 2-1 in favor of a Democratic Party bloc. It is only because the Czechs outnumber the Slovaks more than 2-1 that the Communist Party was able to form the government and become the largest single party in the Republic. If Slovakia had been free, think what a difference it might have made. There would have been an outpost, if only a small one, of anti-communist democracy in Eastern Europe. The kindness of strangers, unrelenting nationalism. Vlado Klementis, as Slovak communist and foreign minister of the Republic, was hanged for it. In the West, we speak of the so-called Prague Spring, as if that early attempt at glasnost and perestroika came from the Czechs. Do you know that the first agitation for reform came from Slovakia, long before the West heard about it? Is it a coincidence that those who believe in socialism with a human face were Slovaks? Alexander Dubček to this day considers himself a Slovak nationalist. And to this day, the only practical result of the 1968 reform is that Czechoslovakia at last contains, perhaps only in name, two equal nations in federated state. There is a Czech Socialist Republic and a Slovak Socialist Republic. Two totalitarian republics, it is true, but at least there are two. Is it not notable that this arrangement of 1968 was brought about by communists, and yet it is exactly the same ideal, two equal partners in a federated state, as that proposed by the Ludovic Sturz liberals of 1848, who were mostly Protestant, and exactly the same as those proposed by Father Hlinka and Father Joseph Tiso in 1918 and 1938, and they were Catholic. The Slovaks do not change. One of the traits we have learned from our peasant ancestors is endurance. Last September, there was a conference at the University of Toronto on the 70th anniversary of the founding of Czechoslovakia. Professor Radoslav Selucký was a cabinet minister and a prominent Czech economist until 1968. He is teaching at the Carleton University now. And he remarked on how surprised the Czechs were that the Slovaks cared so little for the economic and social reforms of 1968 and so much for the division of the nation. How strange that he should be surprised. It shows how little the Czechs knows to this day about the hopes and the aspirations of their Slovak neighbors. Dubček believed that the Soviet Union would answer the hopes and the dreams of his people, just as so many other Slovak leaders believed that the English, the French, the Americans, the Germans, the Austrians, someone, anyone would support them. He was, as usual, disappointed in the kindness of strangers. Certainly the world powers decide the fate of the small nations. How can we deny that? It is the truth, the world powers that are achieving the freedom of Namibia, Afghanistan, and Cambodia. All they needed was to understand the real issue. Yasser Arafat is succeeding today in his long struggle because, at last, the world powers have learned something about that long struggle and have started to sympathize with it. That is our task as free Slovaks today, to let the world know that our long struggle is not over yet, that we still exist, we Slovaks. We still desire that freedom that March 14, 1939 symbolized for us. And we do not want the kindness of strangers. All we want is the understanding of friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those very heart-spoken words, Mr. Strasny. I'd now like to call upon Senator Nurgitz on behalf of the Government of Canada. Senator?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Monsignor Reckham, distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to be here to bring you greetings on behalf of the Government of Canada. I know that you have a lengthy program and many more to hear from. I only wanted to say that Slovak Canadians have much to be proud of and much to hope for. Here in Canada, Slovak Canadians have met the opportunities and challenges of Canadian citizenship with great success, participating fully in every aspect of our daily Canadian life. It's fitting that we celebrate here in Manitoba, a province that welcomed many of the earliest Slovak immigrants. These individuals are amongst the pioneers of our province who helped to build the country both economically and socially, guided by an ethic of hard work, personal sacrifice, and ability. All Canadians wish you well in your efforts to retain and maintain your Slovak culture and heritage, and one day to obtain your freedom. So on behalf of the Prime Minister of Canada and Mr. Jerry Wiener, the Secretary of State, I wish you well. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Senator Nurgitz. I'd like to call upon Dr. Paktikan on behalf of the Liberal Party of Canada.
Mr. Chairman and distinguished guests at the head table, other distinguished guests in the audience at large, boys and girls, and ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I would like to say that I feel very much within the family. It is no coincidence, perhaps, that my eldest is the classmate of the Master of Ceremonies tonight, Larry. It is no coincidence that I have worked at the Canadian Ethnocultural Council with the president of your league here in Manitoba, and to a degree with Marian Statsny of your Congress. And it is no coincidence, as I now reflect, that it was in 1968 when I entered Canada that I was hearing the news about then I did not realize, now I fully realize, is the struggle for freedom, the struggle for human dignity that one of your own, Alexander Dubček, was waging then in Czechoslovakia. And so indeed, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and distinguished guests, I am indeed honored and privileged to accept your invitation to bring the greetings of the people of Winnipeg North, whom I represent, and that of myself and of my wife on the occasion of the celebration of the proclamation of the independence of Slovakia some 50 years ago. Half a century is more than half of the average lifespan of any citizen in the world. Hence, those who originally proclaimed the independence of your nation some 50 years ago have gone to the great beyond. But the spirit and the cause of that struggle, of that momentous event, I can feel tonight remains within the midst of you. Witness your celebration tonight, and I'm confident will remain in the hearts and minds of the future generations of your community. And speaking of the community, I'm indeed privileged that now about 21 years old in Canada, I have witnessed the living by your community of the values of tolerance, of the value of fairness, perseverance, and hard work, the values that Canadians as a whole truly cherish. So in a real sense, as a young Canadian and as a new citizen, I have learned from you. And therefore, it is my privilege to tell you now that I'm really honored to convey to you how, as you continue to be the voice for your people, country, that now I, as a member of Parliament for Winnipeg North, it will be my duty and my commitment, now in opposition and with confidence, I hope, when in government, we will ensure that Canada plays a crucial role, that people with a universal commitment to freedom be given that freedom, because that is a universal human aspiration and a universal human right. And so tonight, as you celebrate that determination to have freedom for your mother country, I share your sentiment and I greet you well and wish you all Godspeed. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paktikan. I'd now like to call upon Darren Prasnik on behalf of the government of Manitoba.
Larry, Monsignor, Senator, my colleagues from the Manitoba Legislature, head table guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure to be here with you tonight on behalf of our Premier, the Honourable Gary Filmon, as well as on behalf of the government, indeed the people of Manitoba. I think I speak on behalf of my two colleagues, Mrs. Carstairs and Mrs. Washalisha-Lee, when I say that all of us in Manitoba, indeed the Manitoba Legislature, are pleased to participate with you tonight in this celebration. Tonight we celebrate not just a date which is of significance to the Slovak community, but I think we celebrate as well the endurance, the tremendous vitality of the Slovak community, which has managed through well over 1,000 years to survive as an active and vibrant culture, as an active and vibrant political unit, a sense of nation, despite all of those very hostile friends of which our guest speaker spoke. And I think when you look at whether it be the Magyars, the Tartars, the Habsburgs, the Germans, the Soviets, whoever, despite what ruler has come to Slovakia to conquer and to rule, the Slovak people have survived that ruler. And we know that they will continue to survive their current rulers. So tonight we pay tribute to the endurance of the Slovak people and the Slovak culture. I have two very pleasurable functions to perform tonight as well, and one of them is to make a presentation to one of the youngest members of your community to achieve distinction in our province, and that is young Matthew Lipka, whose poster drawing has won the first prize for Manitoba at a recent ceremony for the Canada Day celebration. So if Matthew would like to, or Matko would like to come forward. Are you here tonight? Okay, come on, Matko. Please. Please, come on up.
I hear you done a good job. Okay. There's your plaque. Just stay up for a moment. I think this gentleman wants to get a picture. He's almost a politician already.
If you could just stay for a moment. My other pleasurable task is to present to you on behalf of the people of Manitoba a proclamation celebrating this 50th anniversary of the declaration of an independent Slovak state. And I think it only fitting at this time that I present it not only to one of the youngest members of your community, but also to one of the most senior members of your community. And please forgive the my pronunciation. Although I share with you some roots in Eastern Europe, the Ukrainian and Slovak languages have many words in common. We do have a few that are different, so my pronunciation isn't quite right. But if I could call upon a gentleman who's sitting very near to me, John Fatara, who I believe is one of the oldest members of the Winnipeg branch of the Canadian Slovak League. John, would you come up, please? John? John, tonight I present this proclamation to you and to Machko, and I think it only fitting when we see the two of you up here, two individuals who have achieved, one for so many years for his community and another who is just beginning to achieve for his community. I think it only fitting with that continuity. I know that the Slovak community in Manitoba and Canada, indeed the Slovak nation, the two of you here tonight symbolize that continuity, which I'm sure gives your community and all of us great heart. So on behalf of the people of Manitoba, I present this proclamation to both of you here this evening. Maybe if you could just come over here, I think we'd like to get pictures. Do you want a picture?
Yes.
We present this to Thank you and all the best.
Mr. Prasnik, I'd like to thank you very much. I'd now like to call upon Mrs. Sharon Carstairs, Leader of the Liberal Party of Manitoba and Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm delighted to be here tonight to celebrate with you the tenacity of the human spirit, because that's really what we are celebrating tonight, is the spirit of the Slovakian people, a people who have held together their wonderful sense of community, their language, their culture, their heritage, despite incredible odds, because self-determination is almost always in a nation the fundamental desire and the glue that's often required to keep those things living. You have rarely had that glue in your history. But what you have had is spirit. And that spirit has led you to encourage the development of your language even here in this community. Visiting Folklorama and your pavilion. It's one of the smaller pavilions, as you are well aware, but it never lacks in spirit. It never lacks in enthusiasm. It never lacks in competency of the performance. And that is what I hope for you for your future, that someday that spirit that invades all of you will lead to the evolution of that self-determination, and there will be an independent Slovakian state in which you can celebrate together that joyousness of a true history and a true culture in a true nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Carstairs. I'd now like to call upon Mrs. Judy Wass Elisa Lease on behalf of the New Democratic Party of Manitoba.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, Mr. President, Monsignor, distinguished guests, friends and members of the Slovakian community here in Manitoba and outside of Manitoba. Welcome to our visitors from the United States and from other provinces. I'm delighted to be a part of this wonderful celebration, the 50th anniversary of the declaration of an independent Slovak state. I'm sure you don't want to hear another political speech. You've had a whole lineup this evening, and the best part is yet to come, all the dancing and the reflections on the wonderful Slovakian culture. So I won't take up much time, but I want to say greetings on behalf of Gary Dewar and our NDP caucus. Gary regrets he could not be here at the last minute. However, his loss is my good fortune. It's been a wonderful evening, and my husband and I are glad to be here, and we're looking forward to the rest of the evening. I'm particularly proud to be here this evening, and I think it's appropriate that I'm here perhaps even more than Gary Dewar, even if you wanted him, because after all, the heart of your community, your church, your visitation of Our Lady Slovak Church is in my constituency, and I'm very proud to represent the area in which your church is located, and I'm very proud of the work you are doing in my community, proud of your work in a spiritual way, and proud of your work in a cultural way through Folklorama and all of the other contributions you make to our society. Let us remember this evening as a celebration of the incredible long history of the Slovakian people. Let us leave this evening commemorating the struggles of your ancestors and remembering the lesson that they have taught us all, which is a determination to fight, to preserve that which is precious to us, our culture, our language, our religion, our traditions. And let us remember that this is a lesson for the whole of Canada, for our entire country, to be true to its uniqueness, to maintain its unique identity, its sense of justice, its sense of humanity, and its determination to be a collection of many different peoples, regardless of race, religion, or culture. Best wishes, and Jakuyu.
Among the various greetings we've had from the government representatives, we have a letter from Jerry Wiener, the Secretary of State for Canada, which I won't read at this time, but I'd also like to pass along the greetings from Mr. William Zatko from Slovakia. Mr. Zatko attended the planting of our Lipa tree at the Manitoba Legislature 2 years ago. He would like to extend his best wishes upon the Slovaks and legislators in our province and our country, and is proud of our commemoration. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon Cheryl Kuklica and Roger Kiska to come up and present their special thanks to our guests.
On behalf of the Slovak community, I would like to take a few moments to thank our distinguished guests for their time and understanding of our cause. Slovak events around the world have been attended to by many national and international leaders such as Pope John Paul II, Ronald Reagan, and Canada's Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. As grateful as we are to these people, our hearts are gladdened because at a local level, Slovaks can count on the support of the many men and women who serve this country, or the city of Winnipeg, our province of Manitoba, and this country, Canada. As a token of our appreciation, I would like to call upon Cheryl Kukulita to please present complimentary Valashkas to our honored guests. Firstly, to Senator Nathan Nurgitz, who is here on behalf of the Government of Canada. Second, to Dr. Ronaldo Pactacan, MP for the Liberal Party of Canada. Third, to Mr. Darren Prasniak, MLA for the Progressive Conservative Party of Manitoba. He is here on behalf of the Honorable Premier of Manitoba, Gary Filmon. Fourth, to Mrs. Sharon Carstairs, MLA and Leader of the Official Opposition and Leader of the Liberal Party. And finally, to Mrs. Judy Wassily-Solis, MLA for the New Democratic Party of Manitoba, who is here on behalf of Gary Dewar, the leader of the New Democratic Party in Manitoba. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cheryl and Roger. I would now like to read out the proclamations that were given to us. The first one comes from the Premier of Manitoba. Whereas the Slovak peoples have long sought and suffered for self-government, and whereas the Slovak people stood fast against the declaration by the government of the day declaring that their nation was no more, and whereas the Slovak people welcomed the newly created Czechoslovak dual republic, but were appalled when the centralist government in Prague removed the rights of the Slovak people by declaring a unified Czechoslovak nation, and whereas the struggle for Slovak independence and sovereignty was victorious on March 14, 1939, marking a time of cultural revival, of the establishment of new educational institutions, and of a Slovakia that was free to secure its own national destiny, albeit for a short 6 years. And whereas the Slovaks continued to struggle for independence after their nation was to change the constitution and secure Slovakia as a federal republic within Czechoslovakia, albeit in a much restricted form after the Soviet invasion of 1968. And whereas the Slovaks today, struggling to create a free and democratic nation, now look hopefully to a future that will allow them to once again display with pride their national symbols and sing the true anthem. And now, therefore, be it known that Gary Filmon, Premier of the province of Manitoba, does hereby recognize the 50th anniversary of the declaration of an independent Slovakia, and thereby commends his thoughtful observance to all citizens of our province and to all those who would help the Slovak cause for self-determination. And the second proclamation, presented by Mayor Norrie on March 14th, 1989, was also rededicated just the other day to the Toronto Slovak dancers in a special ceremony at City Hall. Whereas Slovaks are proud of their ancient heritage and have done their best to live in the tradition of St. Cyril and Methodius, and whereas the Slovak culture and language has survived many tests of endurance as foreign armies struggle to claim her fertile lands, and whereas the Slovaks remember days of freedom and self-rule when on March 14, 1939, the independence of Slovakia was declared, and many nations rose to greet her. And whereas, after the unjust and unwanted liberation of Slovakia, and still today, many people leave to find peace, protection, and hope in the great democracies of the world. And whereas Canada and all our provinces and all our cities and towns open their arms and their hearts to greet the Slovaks and help them start anew. And whereas, in remembrance of the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Slovak Independence, Slovaks across Canada and throughout the free world pray for their brothers and sisters in their ancestral homeland, wishing upon them the same peace, protection, and hope found there. And whereas the Slovak community gives its most solemn gratitude to those governments, municipal, provincial, and federal, for the support, help, and encouragement. Now, therefore, William Norrie, Mayor of the City of Winnipeg, in the province of Manitoba, did hereby proclaim March 14th, 1989, as the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Slovak Independence. I would now like to stop and ask for a technical break for the camera crew, and I ask that you please have a drink from our bar, and we will begin again in about 15 minutes. Thank you. We have just recently received a poem that is currently being circulated around Slovakia, which is unsigned, as the author was afraid of the prosecution that might result from it. This poem is in commemoration of the first anniversary of the Bratislava Good Friday demonstration, the day when the protesters were brutally beaten by the police. It is a fitting poem that deserves recognition at our banquet tonight.
Táto báseň vznikla len pred niekoľkými dňami a dostala sa záhadnými cestami zo Slovenska a je dnes prednesená medzi vami po prvýkrát. Hovorí, ako Larry povedal, o smutnej udalosti spred roka na bratislavský Veľký piatok. A tak sa aj volá. Prvé výročie bratislavský Veľký piatok. Nič viac. To moc stúpa klamstvom a silou vládne nad nami. Katolíci žiadajú biskupa, aby sa vraj šetrilo frázom. Nech ten už viac živej nepovie, že zná túžbu a vôľu národa, komu tak vadí jasné svetlo sviec, že ho chce dusiť, kým sa nepoddá. Chceme žiť doma život pravdivý, pamätlivý na ťarchu storočí, nech sa teda násilník zadiví a zvie, že on mieru prekročil, ako tí, čo pre lásku na kríži nemali iné, iba ruhanie. Zlo zlosinovi najviac ublíži, najmä ak sa spolieha na zbranie, ktoré sú znakom, že je bezmocný. Dôkazom, jak sa pravdy obáva. Násilie ho iba vzle umocní, a vzdiali sa mu pravá úľava. No ja viem, my všetci vieme a sme na vine, že zlo uprostred nás tak zbujnelo, pred Bohom nič nikoho neminie a my sme pravde žili nesmelo. Ak môj brat nebol v duchu pri mne tam a spolužiak na mňa šiel s obuškom, nutne si teraz v mysli premietam, či som pred nimi nežil pod rúškom spravodlivosti, lásky a pravdy, zatiaľ čo oni iné videli. Chcem ti už, Pane, patriť raz navždy, odpusť, že tvoj som bol, no nie celý. Pomôž nám, Bože, spojiť životy, by skončil náš strach, naše mlčanie, by z našej sily zdrojom vždy bol, veď moc zla iba takto ustane. Hoci by nás aj bolo neveľa, len by si v nás zlo a hriech utíšil, byť sa vie kdejaká zberba zbavila, to milovať vždy viacej stojí síl.
I ask that you now all welcome Winnipeg's own Zornichka dancers.
Ľudov Vešenovský, Slovensko. V krvi ťa nosím a ťažký je tu dar, vklinený hlboko, hlbšie jak vlastné bytie. Či klesám peklo dní, či stúpam pred oltár, do srdca útočíš, jak večné vlnobytie. Stokrát som preklial deň i pečať tvojej krvi, pod slinou vlastných, pod bičom krutej sily, vraviac si nikdy viac. A pred som chvíľil prvý, keď vetry krvavé do tvojich brehov byli. Myslel som, chlebom si, a všetko je len brucho, nasíti iná zem, poviem jej dobrá mati, lež Kriste, biely chlieb a v hrdle sucho, sucho, neprežrieš bez slz, nedá ti. Je to v nás. Je to v nás a nie je to na to lieku. To preniesť musí sa, prebolieť do ostatku. Nesiem ťa v úžase z terminov tohto veku, jak stigma krvavá veľkonočného piatku.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gorczyk. And now I would ask that everyone please welcome our special guests, the Toronto Slovak dancers. Slovakia is a nation situated in the heart of Europe. Today, it is one of the two nations making up the Federal Republic of Czechoslovakia. Even though its language and culture closely resemble those of the rest of the Slavic nations, it is still held on to its own typical folk customs, which are unique to Slovakia. Our program will very briefly carry us through the life of the Slovak people.
Dobrý večer, milí a vážení hostia. Slovak Dancers z Toronta sa vám dnes predstaví programom, ktorým sa pokúsime pozrieť zrakom fantázie na dlhú tradíciu našej národnej kultúry. Kladivo predstav v Kanade o tom, čo sme boli, akí sme boli, to je pamäť ľudu hovoriaca o sebe samom. A tu sú naše deti, ďaleko tu pred nich v novej domovine, o nás minulých hovoriace ako malé, jagavé zlomky.
During the long winter evenings, the women and girls gathered together in someone's house to engage in the ritual-like work of spinning wool. It is slow work, but where there are girls, there will also be the boys, and the atmosphere is full of fun.
Slovakia má zdravé korene. Ak má človek zdravé korene, môže byť veľký v myšlienkach i činoch a človek nášho rodu má zdravé korene. Ak má národ zdravé korene, môže sa stať veľkým, bohatým a slávnym. A náš národ má zdravé korene. Zdvihnime teda bohatstvo ducha našich predchodcov, bohatstvo ducha nás všetkých.
When the spring sun begins melting the winter snows, the youth emerge to the outdoors to celebrate the arrival of spring. There is a joyous mood that lasts till dusk, and the evening chill reminds that the winter still has not lost its grip over the countryside. and the trees grow into bloom, people all over the world say that the month of love has arrived. In Slovakia, under the cover of night, the boys go into the woods to cut down a tall tree. Then they decorate it and set it in front of the home of the young lady to whom they want to show their affection. Naturally, the girls cannot wait until morning to find out if someone likes them.
Nie snáď slovenskej dediny, ktorá by svojim pokoleniam nezachovala aspoň čiastku z toho, čím sa kedysi ozývali jej pastviny, svahy okolitých hôr i intimné kúty izbičiek. Nie, nedali sme zahynúť našim pesničkám, hrám a tancom. Ich hodnoty vedeli oceniť už naši národovci. Ich krásy zveľaďujeme aj my dnes. lásky a vnímal spolu s prvými zvukmi domova a okolitej prírody aj prvé tóny ľudovej piesne. Ľuľajže mi ľuľaj, živé očka stúľaj, živé jak holube, decko mojo ľúbe, živé jak holube, decko mojo ľúbe. Ľuľuže mi ľuľu, žijem si košuľu, stromati rečkami, pojďeš susečkami, stromati rečkami, pojďeš susečkami. Žijem si košuľu, stromati rečkami, pôjdem susečkami, stromati rečkami, pôjdem susečkami. Ej hora, hora, zelená hora, čože ma Bože môj do hory volá, čože ma Bože môj do hory volá. Volá ma, volá, frajerka moja, poj ke mne šuhajko, sama som doma. Poj ke mne šuhajko, sama som doma. Sama som doma, našich kostele, poj ke mne šuhajko, bude veselie. Poj ke mne šuhajko, bude veselie. Jačmenisko, uviazala žena muža na remenisko. Uviazala žena muža Oj, ženo, ženo, nerob mi zlého, nepoviem ti za 3 rôčky ničoho zlého. Nepoviem ti za 3 rôčky ničoho zlého. A po 3 ročkoch budem ťa bijať, na čo si ma naučila palenvo pijať. Na čo si ma naučila palenvo pijať. Poďme domov večerie, poďme domov večerie, tu nás niečo zožerie. Tu nás niečo zožerie. Zahor slniečko, zahor. Zahor slniečko, zahor. Za ten zelený javor. Za ten zelený javor. Za ten najzelenejší. Za ten najzelenejší, kde je môj najmilejší, kde je môj najmilejší.
After the wheat has been taken from the fields and the grain has been beaten out of the heads by the men with the tool they call tsepi, which has just been demonstrated by our boys, the girls sift the mass to separate the grain from the straw. It is hard work, but like the men, the girls can find ways to make this grueling task enjoyable. When the days come to an end and the boys again arrive on the scene, the fatigue is quickly replaced by the spirit alive in young blood.
Kvietku, kvietku si sadil do spoločnej záhradky, až sa rozrástla v bohaté lány nevšednej krásy. Jeho tvorivá vášeň sa prenášala z otca na syna, zo syna na vnuka, z generácie na generáciu. Jedno pokolenie prichádza, jedno pokolenie odchádza. Zem však trvá.
Besides working and dancing, a person also needs to relax. At these times, the bacha, the Slovak name for the head shepherd, brings out his pujara, a typical and unique Slovak musical instrument. The music of the pujara vibrates in the air, as if trying to relieve the whole world of the stresses of life.
Keď však volal osud človečí a nebolo mu pritom do rečí, tu zoťal bázu, málky trošičku, vytriasol z nej jej krehkú dušičku a pomaľoval zvonku útly strom, ako si ženích zdobí vlastný dom. A oprášiach si z hliny kolená, sám seba potom vložil do kmeňa a ostal v ňom. Kráľ z krvi otrokov a jeho dých sa horou širokou tak uhrančivo niesol do dialy, že sa mu mŕtve skaly ozvali.
When we talk of woodsmen, one cannot forget to mention Juro Janošík, the so-called Slovak Robin Hood, who lived during the 17th century. With his band of followers, he stole from the rich and gave to the poor. The Terkova region of Slovakia, the birthplace of Janošík, is known by the hot temper of its people. This temper is even shown in the songs and dances from this area.
Srdce človeku poskočí, keď ju len z diaľky počuje. Tríbili ju celé pokolenia muzikantov a tých bolo, ba aj je doteraz. Proste v malej krajine hudobná veľnosť. Takou je terchovská nebeská muzika.
The life in the Tundra Mountains is full of work centered around sheep. Because the shepherds live high up in the hills all summer, they often cross paths with wolves, bears, or other wild animals. In order to protect themselves, as well as their woolly charges, they carry a weapon called the bunkosh. It is made of a hefty piece of wood, covered with nails and metal rings. If the wild animal should wander too close, the shepherd will first try to scare it away by making a noise with the bunkosh. If the noise does not drive it away, a whack across the head would change the mind of even the most aggressive animal. The boys would also use the bunkosh to settle the differences among themselves, which arose, more often than not, because of a girl.
Slovensko, krajina pod Tatrami, zem s drsnou, ale pôvabnou prírodou, s drsným, ale dušou ušľachtilým ľudom. Často musel húžev na to zápasiť s pohromami, utrpeniami i neprávosťou. Pieseň mu dodávala silu i odvahu. Nebolo to sentimentálne vzdychanie, bola to pieseň zdravej túžby po živote. V pohnutých dobách sprevádzala i chlapcov do boja.
Someone once said that songs are the sounds of the human soul. And Slovak songs are just that. Singing is an inseparable part of the life of the Slovak people. A song welcomes a person at his birth, accompanies him during his struggles during life, and finally escorts him on his final journey to the grave. Songs give man a courage and a power to fight injustice, but they can also tenderize the character of even the most toughest of men. remember again and therefore help preserve the heritage of our forefathers, a rich heritage granted to us by our Heavenly Father. This is a heritage we can never let fade away. Through us, it must be passed on to our children for many generations to come.